Okay, so as the title, as y'all see it, lately, in some spare of the moments, have you ever just felt like, I know something, but then again, it's like you get lost. Like, it's like you, one minute you know, and the next minute you lost. And that's anything in your life. Whatever, if it resonates with you in this title, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so it was like probably a couple of days ago, I was talking to one of my homies, and I was just telling them, have you ever felt like and then all of a sudden it's like you feel lost? And when I was reflecting this morning, when I was spending time with the Lord, he gave me an example of, like, you're on a hike, right? And you have a map, or maybe you have a compass, and you're following the instructions and the directions of where you should go, but all of a sudden you just lost the direction. Like, you begin to become confused. Even though you have the directions and the instructions, and if the directions tell you to go somewhere, it just obviously looks like that's not where you need to be going. Logically speaking, it's like, you're lost, or maybe the compass just starts shaking everywhere and you just don't know which way to go. And like, you just lost for confusion. And God reminded me of one of the words that I put out, and it was Matthew 13. And that was about the farmer planting seeds, and how, the one that stuck out to me was, okay, as he scattered them across his fields, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell shallow on the soil with underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow, but the plants soon withered under this hot sun. And since they didn't have roots, they died. Deep roots, they died. And as God was explaining this word to me, and he brought it back to me, it's the sense of saying that God's word is the seed, right? And if you're not rooted in him and your foundation is not in him, it's easy to get off track of your will, of the will that God has for your life. For instance, like, he may tell you to do something, but logically it does not make sense. Or it makes you uncomfortable because he's stretching you to do something that you never did to get to the place that he already intended you to go. But then it's like you're stuck and you're just like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know the outcome of that. I don't feel like I have control over that situation if I make that decision that God told me to do, or go this way that God told me to go. And that's when it gets confusing. Like, okay, now I feel lost. Because it's like, when God is stretching you, it's so uncomfortable because you're doing things that you never did, and it's making you feel like, in other words, I don't know if I want to do this. It just feels like your flesh is like fighting you from doing what it is that God told you to do. And that's whether it's just whatever it is that you've gone through in your life. Like, it will be a time where he tells you to do something, and it's like you just don't want to do it. Or it's not that you don't want to do it, you just don't know the outcome, or you feel like you don't have no control if you do this, or you just have all these thoughts in your mind from the past that's literally suffocating and taking away from what God has already intended you to do. Like, you keep thinking about the past, and that's why God always reminds me, and to remind you guys, to renew your mind every day, because you cannot walk into the new with old mindsets. God says to forget the former things. Behold, I am doing something new. And that new requires transition. And that transition sometimes requires not knowing to go left or right, but to keep your eyes focused on God and get into your word and know the things that he says that he has promised over your life. Know the things that he promised over your life. Trust in him. Know that he will not leave you nor forsaking you. Understand that faith is the evidence of things that's unseen, but faith comes by the hearing of the word of the Lord. And when you only have God to lean on, you will never be forsaken. No matter how uncomfortable it feels, no matter how painful it may feel, no matter how confusing it may feel. It may feel like you were up and all of a sudden you down, and you're like, is this what's happening in my life? But really, God causes things to fall in order for it to become together in the way that he intended it to be. And that's where when you get that lost feeling, like, did I do right? Was this right? Is this the right decision? This is pulling things out of me that feels like you pulling out my teeth because I don't want to do it. And you just stand still. And that's when you become lost. And that's when the enemy comes and snatch away the word that God gave to you, because you're facing trials and tribulations. You're facing things that isn't pleasant right now. And when you focus on God's word and his promises, which is his word, the enemy can't snatch away what God had given you. And that's when we get into the seed that fell on good soil represents those who truly and understands God's word and produce a harvest of 30, 60, or even 100 times as much as he has planted. Meaning that you hold on your faith, you hold on to that word no matter the trials and tribulations that you had to go through, no matter your ups and downs, no matter what it looked like, no matter what it felt like, no matter who said this ain't it, you still held on that word, because God's word is his promises, and God is not a man that will lie nor change his mind. Okay, so when you're in situations where it does not look pleasant, or it may feel like you're failing, or it just may feel like it ain't what you want to feel, hold on to his word and what he said, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it looks like. His word will prevail. His will prevail, like I said in my previous video, right? So then when God was just giving this revelation this morning, I was just like thinking to myself, wow, you're not the only one that's going through this. When I speak to my homie, like, I was just like, dang. When I said that, they were like, yeah, I feel the same way at times, because at the end of the day, although you may not know what someone may be going through, just know that you're not the only one that ever felt lost, not knowing what to do. Because in that lost feeling, most of the times you're transitioning into something new, something unfamiliar. And when you're transitioning into something that's unfamiliar, it doesn't feel comfortable. And it was so amazing, where I was speaking to one of my patients, and she was telling me that her nephew is like so good at transitioning. And she was just basically telling me, like, when I told him, oh, you're going to a new school, he was like, okay. When she told him something about your parents is getting divorced, he was like, okay, I'm gonna still see my dad. And then she was like, yeah, you're gonna still see your dad or whatever. What she was telling me, that her parents, which is her daughter, was telling her that her son was saying, like, okay, like he was okay with the divorce, as long as he still be able to see his dad, he was okay. So even though he was okay with it, he was okay with the transition. Like, even though it felt uncomfortable, even though he, was used to seeing both his parents in his house, it was still something that he had to transition to. And sometimes life happens to the point where you are forced to move. You're forced to get out that comfort. You're forced to be out of that, what makes you feel comfortable. Like, you're forced to be pushed out of it. Whether that's a breakup, whether that's a job location change, whether that's maybe a demotion, whatever the case may be, you're in transition. And transition requires to be uncomfortable. Transition requires God as your foundation, because at the end of the day, like I said, what he has promised over your life, when you're reading your word, you hold on to that, because at the end of the day, all things work out for the good of all things work out. Whatever I'm trying to say, it's in my head. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Okay, so that's all I wanted to come on here and say. Like, if you ever felt lost and just confused and not know what to do, don't be afraid, because 9 times out of 10 you know what to do, but you just don't want to do it. And also, it's another part of this where if you ever feel lost and confused, it's because 9 times out of 10 you're going through a trial that's uncomfortable, and you have to push through it with God, and to not hold any unforgiveness in your heart, to love your enemies, to pray for your enemies, and understand that it had to happen to get you through whatever it is that you need to learn, and to know that in your transition, to renew your mind, because you can't walk into the new holding on to old thoughts, old patterns, and old behaviors. You have to walk into the new knowing that God let you go through that to get something out of you, to produce what he needs you to produce, which is the fruit into your future of what you need to have, okay? Whether that's self-control, whether that's patience, whether that's kindness, humbleness, whatever it is that you go through. Don't always think of the negative, but think of the positive of how you came out on top, okay? And also, even if it's lost and confused because you may have went through a demotion, understand that the doors that God closed is for your good, and the doors that God opened is for your good, okay? So when you're a child of God, you will not be left nor forsaken, okay? So I know it's a short word, but I just want to come on and talk to y'all about this, and I hope it resonates in y'all's spirit. Let it sizzle in your spirit, and I will see you guys next time.